Hey, it's Ollie, and in this video I want to talk about what I call the gun to the head effect, which is a rather crude way of talking about memory and the extent to which effort on our own part impacts on our ability to remember things, and it applies way beyond memory as well. Now, it's pretty trendy in language learning circles to talk about the fact that we should enjoy ourselves, we should have fun, we should do things that interest us, we shouldn't force it. And I'm like the biggest proponent of that. In all of my podcasts and videos, I talk about how crucial it is that you make language learning fun, in the sense that you try to combine your interests with your learning. Okay, so you don't spend ages studying material that's just not interesting for you. There's nothing worse than being bored. If you're bored, you won't learn. You have to be interested. Motivation is the key to the kingdom, and the best way to get motivated is to work with material that you like, right? So it's and also with the kind of humanistic trend in education, things often verge towards the end of the area of enjoying ourselves and having fun, and etc., etc. Now, with that said, if you are trying to learn a new skill, or if you're trying to acquire new information, you've got to balance out the fun and the enjoyment and the kind of the touchy-feely side of language learning, if you like, with targeted effort. And when I talk with people about memory, specifically about growing vocabulary in a language, what I notice is that people often don't try hard enough to remember stuff. Okay, so let me explain what I'm talking about. You can sit down with a list of 10 words. Let's make it simple. I can show you a word in the language that you're learning, and I could ask you to memorize that word. Very simple task. Now, you may or may not be able to do that, but then if we tried that same experiment, but except this time I held a gun to your head and said, you've got 10 seconds to remember this word, or I pulled the trigger, straight away you are going to become a memory expert. In 10 seconds flat, you will find a way to remember that word, right? Because you are very, very motivated to do so. Now, I came across this idea by listening to a guy called Jim Quick, who is a learning and memory expert himself, and he was in an interview where he talked about a similar situation. He talked about people having trouble remembering people's names, and he said, if you have trouble remembering people's names, just imagine that you've got a chest with $1 million in cash next to that person whose name you're trying to remember, and see if you and you get that money if you can successfully remember that person's name, like an hour from now or something like that. And he made that exact same point. In fact, I stole that point from him word for word. He says that someone who has traditionally struggled to remember names has, in a matter of seconds, become a memory expert, because they are properly incentivized to do so. They'll use whatever kind of mnemonic devices or tricks they can dream up in order to remember that name. Okay, there is not much mystery to it. Okay, the amount of effort that you put in a targeted way in one instance will have a direct impact on the extent to which you can successfully memorize stuff. Now, obviously, it is difficult and impractical to apply a method like this to the entire task of learning a language. You cannot learn the tens of thousands of words, or the many thousands of words you need in order to learn a language with this kind of targeted one-by-one method. That doesn't work. But of course, nothing in language learning happens in isolation. We're talking about memory as part of a broad range of activities that you will do. But what happens, the danger is that if you spend too much time trying to enjoy the process, as important as all of that is, if you spend too much time trying to enjoy the process, maybe you're like learning language on the sofa while watching TV, or you practice French by watching movies in the evening with a glass of wine. Like, this is all great, and I encourage you to do all of that. But there comes a point where, if you don't sit down and apply 100% of your mental faculties to the task of, for example, memorizing a word, that you are just simply selling yourself short. There's so much that you can achieve, by increasing your kind of your level of effort or the amount of energy that you and focus that you put into a task by just 10%. In reality, you can do a lot more than that. You know, if you can be properly effectively incentivized to remember a name or a word by having a gun to the head or $1 million in cash in front of you, if that is an incentive that works for you, then you possess the ability to turn that on whenever you want. It really is just a question of you wanting to do it, and it comes back to motivation. The reason I use, by the way, the kind of gun versus the money thing is that some people respond better to loss than to gain. So you might be the kind of person who is more terrified of the idea of a gun, whereas someone else might be more incentivized by the idea of the money, right? There is really psychologically no difference between the gun or the money being real or fake. I mean, it's you know, you're capable of responding to those offers, that offer or that threat in exactly the same way. So this is I guess a challenge to you when you sit down to learn now, just to ask yourself honestly, how much more could I turn up the dial? Can I apply more of myself in the kind of minute-to-minute process of studying, and what results could I get if I did that? Try it out. Let me know how it goes. It's something that I'm trying to focus on, and my way of doing that on a slightly broader scale is by actually creating focused study time. It's one of the reasons I like to study first thing in the morning for an hour in a very quiet, focused way, because I find that that's the environment in which I can really apply really apply myself in the best way and have the most focus and concentration. Then within that effective environment, then you've got the kind of minute-to-minute task of remembering or memorizing vocabulary, or even concentrating enough to understand the meaning of a text that you're reading. This applies to lots of different things. It's not just about memorizing vocabulary. So there we go. I hope that was helpful. Leave your comments below, please. Looking forward to reading them. And please subscribe if you want more like this. And I will, of course, see you back in the next video.